Most internal audits on construction sites are not audits at all. They're inspections with a different cover page. And here's the cost. The certification body arrives, finds what your internal audit never even looked for, and writes a major non-conformity against your audit process itself. In the next few minutes, you'll walk a real construction site audit with me, opening meeting to closing meeting. And later in this video, the one finding most internal auditors are writing wrong right now. It's not what you think.
Let's define the thing properly. Clause 9.2.1 of ISO 14001 requires internal audits to answer three separate questions. 1. Does the site conform to its own EMS requirements? That's your procedures, your plans, the rules you wrote for yourself. 2. Does it conform to the requirements of ISO 14001 itself? And 3. Is the system effectively implemented and maintained? Not just written down, working. This is a first-party audit, meaning the organization audits itself for its own purposes. Second-party audits come from clients. Third-party means the certification body. Different rules of independence apply to each. And notice something in that first question. If your own procedure is stricter than the standard, your procedure wins. You wrote it, you're bound by it. It's auditable criteria.
Now, the distinction that separates professionals from paperwork. An inspection checks physical conditions against rules. Is the bund intact? That's the containment wall around a fuel tank. Are the skips labeled? Is the spill kit stocked? Snapshot. Done. An audit checks the system. It follows evidence trails across documents, records, and interviews to test whether the management system actually functions. And management review, clause 9.3, is different again. Top management judging whether the whole EMS remains suitable, adequate, and effective. Here's the misclassification I see on real sites constantly. Weekly inspection checklists filed in a folder labeled Internal Audit Records. That folder fails clause 9.2.2. An audit can use inspection findings as input. An inspection can never replace the audit. So what does a compliant audit program require? Clause 9.2.2, 5 non-negotiables. First, the program documents frequency, methods, responsibilities, planning requirements, and reporting. All 5 elements written down. Second, frequency isn't flat. It weights the environmental importance of your processes, changes affecting the organization, and previous audit results. Your fuel farm gets audited more often than your stationery cupboard. A flat annual schedule for everything fails the intent of the clause. Third, criteria and scope are defined for each audit, not once for the whole program. Fourth, auditor selection must ensure objectivity and impartiality. Hold that thought, it comes back later. Fifth, documented information retained. If it isn't recorded, as far as your certification body is concerned, it didn't happen. Before we walk the site, what counts as evidence? Because a finding without evidence is just an opinion with a reference number. ISO 19011, the guidance standard for auditing management systems, names the evidence-based approach as one of its 7 principles of auditing. 3 types are admissible: records, documents, data, certificates, statements of fact from interviews, and direct observation, what you see yourself and can describe precisely. The test is verifiability. Could a second auditor follow your trail and land on the same finding? And remember, every audit is a sample. You state what you examined. You never certify what you didn't. The foreman seemed unsure is an impression. The operator could not locate the spill procedure. That's evidence. Here's our site. An infrastructure package, live earthworks, a fuel farm, a waste yard, a dewatering discharge line. 1 auditor, 6 steps. Let's walk it. Step 1, and it starts at a desk, not a gate. Assemble the criteria pack. ISO 14001, the site's own EMS procedures, its permits and consents, and the legal register, the list of every legal requirement that applies to this site. That register isn't background reading, it's criteria. A breached permit condition is a non-conformity, even if every clause of the standard is satisfied. Review the Aspects and Impacts Register, the site's own map of how its activities interact with the environment. Your walkthrough route follows the significant ones. Pull previous audit results and open NCRs. Clause 9.2.2 requires them to shape this audit. And check the monitoring records before you walk. Discharge lab results, noise logs, waste quantities. Anomalies in the data become trailheads on the ground.
Step 2. The opening meeting. 15 minutes, not 45. Confirm the scope in one sentence. Which processes, which areas, which shift. Ambiguity here voids findings later. State your criteria explicitly, and right now, that includes naming which edition of ISO 14001 applies. The 2026 edition, published in April. Until this site formally transitions, 2015 remains its certified criteria. We'll come back to why that matters. Declare the sampling basis out loud. Findings reflect what's examined. The absence of findings certifies nothing. Agree escorts, PPE, live work restrictions, and the closing meeting time. And set the tone. This is an audit of the system, not the people. Step 3. Boots on. 4 stations, 4 criteria checks. The fuel farm first. The bund, that containment wall, must hold at least 110% of the largest tank or 25% of total storage, whichever is greater. That figure comes from your permit conditions and design specifications, not from ISO 14001, which is exactly the point. Criteria come from more than one source. Measure it, don't assume it. The waste yard. Do the segregation streams match the named categories in the site's own waste management plan? A mixed skip isn't a finding yet, it's a trailhead. Spill points. Check kit contents against the site's own procedure inventory. Your procedure is the criteria. And the discharge point. Latest lab result against the numeric permit limits. Total suspended solids, pH. Date, parameter, value. Step 4. And this is where audit separates from inspection, permanently. Pick one waste transfer note from that yard. 1. Now trace it end to end, cradle to grave as waste law calls it, from the moment the waste was created to its final disposal. Link 1. The carrier. Is the transporter on the approved list? Licensed? Current? Link 2. The receiving facility. Does its permit actually allow this waste code at this quantity? Link 3. The tipping receipt. Does the claimed tonnage reconcile with the note? One broken link is a system finding. 4 intact links? That's conformity you can evidence. An inspection sees the skip. An audit proves the chain of custody. Duty of care does not end at the site gate. Step 5. Interviews. Because competence lives in people, not in files. Clause 7.2 requires the organization to ensure people are competent, and the training matrix only proves attendance. The interview proves competence. So ask the excavator operator, beside the machine. You strike a fuel line. Walk me through your first 3 actions. Clause 7.3 is the awareness test. Does the worker know the significant environmental aspects of their own task? Not the policy on the wall, their task. Record statements of fact. Name, role, question, answer. Verbatim where it matters. And here's the named misclassification. Auditing the training file and calling it a competence audit. A perfect file plus a worker who can't answer, that's a Clause 7.2 finding, not a paperwork pass. Step 6. Findings. Written to survive challenge. Every nonconformity has 3 parts. The criteria breached, the objective evidence, the finding statement. Miss one, and the site team will take it apart in the closing meeting, and they'd be right to.
Grading. A major means a total breakdown of a system element, or a legal or permit breach. A minor means an isolated lapse where the system otherwise functions. One unlabeled drum is a minor. An unmanaged chemical store is not. Observations and opportunities for improvement are not nonconformities. Mixing the categories either inflates risk or buries it. Then the closing meeting. Evidence first, classification second. If you escorted well and spoke plainly, no finding should surprise anyone at that table. And try this on every draft. Delete the evidence sentence. If the finding still works, it was opinion. Now the edge cases. The 4 ways internal audits get invalidated. 1. Auditing your own work. The environmental manager auditing procedures they wrote breaches the impartiality requirement in 9.2.2. On small sites, fix it structurally. Cross-site auditor exchange or audit another department's processes. Never self-certification. 2. The inspection in disguise. Conditions checked, no document trails, no interviews, that fails all 3 tests in 9.2.1. 3. Findings without evidence. Housekeeping is poor. No criteria, no evidence, no finding. 4. Auditing to preference. I'd store drums differently is an opinion. The criteria are the standard, the permit, and the procedure, not your taste. And now, the payoff I promised at the start. ISO 14001-2026 published on the 15th of April this year, but 2015 certificates stay valid through a transition window running to around May 2029, which means right now, 2 editions are alive at once, and that's exactly where auditors are getting it wrong. Raising findings against 2026 only requirements, like the new Clause 6.3 on planning of changes, against a site still certified to 2015? Invalid finding. Wrong criteria. The reverse trap is coming. After your site transitions, still auditing to 2015 misses the strengthened requirements entirely. The fix is boring and bulletproof. Name the addition in your audit criteria, in the program, and in every report header. And one thing addition confusion never changes, a permit breach is always a major. Legal findings don't downgrade. The system is only real where the work happens. A finding is a gift. It fixes the system before the regulator does. Before you sign any audit report, 5 checks. 1. Criteria named for this audit. Standard edition, permits, own procedures. That's 9.2.2c. 2. Every nonconformity carries criteria, evidence, and finding. Delete the evidence, and it must collapse. 3. At least one vertical trail followed end to end. Waste, discharge, or training to competence. 4. Impartiality you can document. You audited nothing you own. 5. Grading you can defend. Major means system breakdown or legal breach. Minor means isolated lapse. And know this, your internal audit records get audited too. A certification auditor will test these exact 5 points against Clause 9.2.
Next in this playlist, turning findings into corrective action that actually closes. Root cause, not quick fix. If this walkthrough sharpened your practice, subscribe. The full ISO 14001 field guide is built the same way. Real sites, real clauses, no theory without a boot print. EnviroVerge, environmental knowledge, field ready.